You're live.
Okay, we're live. It's Senate Transportation. We're here to discuss the miscellaneous DMV bill and do a walkthrough to see if we can start closing some sections out. And we're here with Damien. I will say to the committee, it would be my hope after all the time we spent that maybe we could be done this by next Friday and have this out of here, and then we'll start concentrating on next year. And maybe if anyone has any particular bills on the wall, we could look at those and just take a glance at those. Go ahead, Damien. And at 20 after, or can you stay for 10 minutes?
I will. Yes.
And then go down.
Yes.
Do you need to be out of here? I've got, she missed a ride and won't be until 10:30.
Okay.
If you need to do something on the budget adjustment, the next 15 minutes would be the time because
I need to go somewhere at 9:30 to introduce a bill.
Okay.
I mean, down the hall.
So what are we gonna do right now? Just go through.
we're gonna go through and start closing sections on this.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Okay.
for the record, I'm Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So you're looking at draft 1.1 of the committee's, right now it's a strike all amendment. We can change that to instances of amendment if you prefer. The first section, non-driver identification cards, this is identical to the bill that the committee introduced. Basically what it is it provides that an individual can have both a non-driver ID and an operator's license at the same time. You can have one or the other.
Is there any concern about this section?
Not in here.
I think, okay, that's the.
Yeah. The only flag I have on this is just that your counterparts in House Corrections and Institutions have been working on language related to this. And I'm continuing to work on that with my colleague Hillary, and I'll let you know if they do changes.
We are going to have the chair of House Institutions in to talk about her language. She asked to come in next Friday. I am pushing to see if we can have her a day before that. The plan would be, if there's not objection in here, to incorporate that language into this, and then the language will be in the same place twice. But that really relates to section 2 and 3.
Yes. So
we'll hold section 2 and hold section 3.
and I am in House Corrections and Institutions at noon today with colleague Hillary to go over their language with them on these two sections. And I can't speak for the committee, but my understanding is they're looking at incorporating what you have in your bill into their bill. So I don't know if they'll do that, but that's what we're looking at today. Section 4 is the insufficient funds. And this is expanding it from a bounce check to electronic funds transfers and credit and debit charges. And as we went over before, it would allow the department to temporarily suspend a license or registration if a person's form of payment didn't go through. I know the committee had some policy concerns about this. The language has not changed.
So let me just ask the commission. So the process is, if it goes through and it's insufficient funds, does department or the bank come back around a second time and try to run the money, run it through again?
Yeah, so our policy now is, this is not instantaneous. This is usually a 30-day out. We do try to contact and make it available. I know that word immediately, it was in there, but that's just current language that's already in there. We as policy use a 30-day window. We do try to reach out and try to get the funds for any action is taken.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, then I think if we're not doing it immediately, we should take out immediately. And just you'd say like timely or something, but then just a question to you, do you contact the person themselves?
Yes, we try to make contact with,
Not just the bank, the
not the
actual-
bank, the actual person. that's
Yes,
But
the result.
could I ask you, the immediately here isn't, this is way after he's
This is
communicating.
after the written notice.
Yeah,
So send written notice of non-payment to the person that, if the required amounts, are not paid, immediately paid, the commissioner shall suspend a license or registration. You could change that to, are not paid by the date set forth in the notice. The commissioner shall suspend the license or registration. So that would also, and I don't know what the notices look like, but if they say, you have until 10 days from the date this was sent to pay, then, we can just update that to reflect that it's not instantaneous, which is how you'd read immediately,
yes.
upon receipt, but instead, within a certain number of days, which would also allow for clearing a check or something like that.
So this was the email back from Jordan. DMV would receive notification from the bank that a check has been returned, NSF. Our accounts payable team reverses the payment and applies the $20 statutory return check fee. The customer is then required to pay the original debt in addition to the return check fee. The bank makes 2 attempts on the check prior to notifying us that it is NSF. But once we are notified by the bank, there is no way for DMT to deposit the check again.
The second time,
But
deposited a second time.
yeah, that's what they said.
I think I missed this when we went through it before. I just have concerns because the post office, it used to be 2 days you could rely on getting mail and your check getting somewhere. Now it could be a week or more.
Yeah.
And it can, and then the $20, that amount could be a hindrance to someone getting a license, and it's just so important to have a license. Did you talk about other alternatives or?
No, so we're just taking what's currently here and we're trying to add, because we're seeing that shift towards credit card and electronic payment. And it's just adding the electronic payment section to capture times when
Just to make it,
when the because it takes a couple of days to actually fall into the account, that if there's a bad electronic transfer, that we have the same ability as we would have if it was like a check to
how many of these do you get?
I thought the numbers are on that memo I sent. I can,
Yeah,
Yeah,
We're
and
back
I'm
in
sorry,
there.
like I said, I missed this, but I'd like to just have some
we'll
conversation on that.
we can have that later. Renee's in there later to have those numbers.
Thank you.
we'll put that on the form. Now, section 5.
Let me catch up with my notes. So section 5, this is the license plate section. So this section here, the provision in here is relating to prohibiting coloring or tinting or changing the appearance of the numbers and letters on the plates, or covering them with any material or substance that changes or tints the color of the plate or the numbers or letters. And this is in addition to current language that provides that number plates shall be kept entirely unobscured and the numbers and letters shall be plainly legible at all times. And so this would address both folks who are getting their plates colored or tinted, as well as folks who are putting some sort of transparent or translucent covering over the plate that may create glare for a camera or otherwise obscure the plate from certain angles or change its appearance.
Is this already illegal?
So I think the question is, the current law says the number plates shall be kept entirely unobscured and the numbers and letters shall be plainly legible at all times. The question is, have you obscured or rendered the numbers and letters not plainly legible if you've colored or tinted the plate, or if you've put one of those transparent plastic coverings over it? We have seen other states, and other states have adopted similar language in recent years. And I think the effort is to try to close potential loopholes or gaps in the law. And so this would be reflective of what other states have done. I think the intent of the original law was that you shouldn't be making it so your license plate can't be read. But I think the language is not necessarily ironclad as it currently stands. It's open to interpretation.
Did we change this from before? Because we talked about, because of the original language isn't here, that says, just says obscure, right?
Yeah, so the original language is on the bottom of page 6, lines 18 to 20, which would have said the number plates shall be kept entirely unobscured and the numerals and the letters thereon shall be plainly legible at all times.
Page 6.
Page 7.
Oh, page 7, I'm sorry. My Word document updated slowly. Bottom of page 7, lines 18 to 20.
Right, so my question was that, and I think the commissioner said it's kind of up to the, or not up to, or the obscured by the troopers at least, was a clear covering is obscure.
Right.
You could make an argument that it's a clear covering is not, and that's.
It's not entirely unobscured. Yes, I think you can.
Yes.
The other option here too is to clarify that a plate shall be considered to be obscured if the numbers or letters are colored or tinted or covered by any substance or material.
I'm okay with B and C. I just wondered if somebody still put it into clear cover that doesn't let camera read it or makes it difficult to read from certain angles. Is that really? Yeah, seems like a clear thing is that it can only be not allowed if you consider it a clear covering, not obscure.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I actually think if you wanted to address that, C should be, I would either clarify in C that any material or substance that changes or tints the color of the plate or creates glare from certain angles that renders the plate difficult to read. Something like that.
Or just say any covering of any kind.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, shall not be covered by any material or substance of any kind.
And that doesn't have to do these things. It could be. We could also say such as the changes for something, but if there's something that we can do to make it clear that a clear covering is not allowed.
I can do that.
I would appreciate it.
I will clarify that
We'll
language.
put this on hold. I will just say I'm at this point in time, I'm I'm fine with what the committee decides. I'm almost to the point where I'd say anything to do with license plates this year, I take out of this whole thing. We've gone back and forth and with anything, but we'll put this on hold for right now because they want that to be a decision of the whole committee.
Okay.
I thought I had it with license plates. Sorry. I gave it my best shot, you know.
Section 6 is the smuggler's notch penalties. So there are two different parts of the penalty. The first is the monetary penalty, which would be either for the employer, or for an operator of a vehicle that's being operated for personal reasons, which would include both a personally owned, say you buy, or you have a long RV, whether you own it or are renting it, and you drive it through the gap and or the notch and get stuck, you'd still be on the hook for the personal reasons. So the monetary penalty increases are going from 1 to 10,000 and 2 to 20,000. And then the subdivision B and the next section relate to assessing 5 points for the individual operating the vehicle. So it's really two separate things here. One is the cash penalty and one is the points for the operator, which would be regardless of whether they're an employee or operating for personal reasons.
Go ahead.
Did we get any information about whether a judge might think $10,000 or $20,000 is an appropriate amount?
Don't have that for you yet.
That's my only concern here, is that it would get thrown.
Well, I'll tell you, my concern is with the second part of it. I have sympathy for a driver that is unsophisticated, that might feel taking orders from their employer, and the employer's front office has said, here's the way you're going to drive, and you're going to drive through the notch. And if the employer does that, I'm fine with them getting the whatever we increase the fee by. The points on the license, I have some sympathy for somebody if they're doing what their employer has told them to do, and their job depends on a license. If we give them points and we put them over the limit so they can't drive, I feel sorry for that person. But that's,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm open.
It's worth noting that you could limit the points assessment to individuals if you didn't take it out altogether. So you can keep it as it is, take it out altogether, or you can limit it to individuals operating for personal reasons. That's another option in there.
Like a self-employed trucker.
Yeah, that's that could potentially catch an owner operator.
Yeah.
But it could also catch, someone driving an RV or something like that.
Well,
But yeah,
I
there's,
personally don't have any sympathy for RV drivers going through.
No.
But I do have, if a front office has said, here's the route you're gonna take, and you're somebody that your job depends on following orders from somebody.
I personally think the flashing billboard that said you're gonna be fined $20,000 now would open my eyes up more than the 5 points would. But, I don't think so I'm okay with even taking the 5 points out.
I'm fine with the 10,000 or the dollar amount.
Yeah, that's
As
what I meant.
long as Andy's question is about the judge, but the points, I'm skittish for.
And we're looking for a deterrent that fines would do it. I think.
I think that, I don't think we changed the fines before to what we thought was going to be noticeable. I think, because I don't know if there's anybody that's done it twice. Yeah, well, it's got stuck twice. So like, it's a big enough deterrent just to do it. Like, so it's, they're not gonna make a gamble or something, because you can't get through, right? So it's not. I think even if you said we already have a lot of signs, the signs at $20,000, they're like, well, that's obviously for somebody else. I'm going, look at me, I'm following the blue line. That's not me. All these signs that don't go this way, that means something else, because obviously Google is telling me to go this way, so this must be correct.
Well, what I'm thinking is, if this notice would go out to, I'm gonna just use Roland Bellavance, for instance, to him, and he sees it, he's gonna buy all his, make sure, maybe he does already, but he's gonna
Yeah.
make sure all his trucks have the right, GPS in it.
Right, I think
Not,
yeah, those that aren't already do that, but I think if you're, I assume, I don't know what who these people are that have been stuck before, but I assume it is. They never even go through Vermont before, like they're just,
Well, Darren, I think if you're from New Jersey and you're a trucking company, you're a Bell Advance company that's in New Jersey, and your front office has sent this driver.
he doesn't speak English and they're like, just go do this. It's a one time and we don't usually make trips to Vermont, but we have this one trip to do.
The English thing is, just for what it's worth, getting much more difficult with the changes in federal regulations. So the federal regulations for English proficiency for CDL operators are getting much more stringent under the current administration.
Yeah, well, I've been around for 40 years, and the administrations come and go.
Yes.
Right.
Like I said, for what it's worth.
And if we're setting this in law for the points or something, that's it.
I'm okay taking whatever the share.
Well, I'm fine with leaving the fine in, but take the points out.
Okay.
Is that
I'm good with
make
that.
sense?
Are you can just like call Judge Stone or something like he
I'm gonna,
testified before and these kind of things, but
yeah, I haven't had a chance to touch base with our judiciary team who usually covers this.
Okay.
I'm hoping to do that this afternoon when things quiet down. Usually post 12 on Friday, things get quiet enough here that we can actually catch each other and
okay.
talk things through. So I'll have an answer for you by next week.
So we'll put the number 6 in is contingent upon hearing back.
Yeah.
And if they don't have any problem with it with the court, then it's in.
Yeah, if the judiciary team says you should have Judge Zone AM, then I'll let Meg know.
Okay. And if they say no, then it's in.
All right, so that means section 7 would come out.
Yep.
All right, so salvage certificates, this has changed from the bill as introduced. This is the language that I worked on with the DMV's council to address and clarify. So the new language starts at line 8 on page 10. And it tracks with what we had before with a little bit more clarity, I'm hoping. So supporting documents used to transfer ownership of the vehicle to the insurer following payment of damages shall not require a notarized signature, may be signed electronically and may be printed on hard copy. And then we're defining signed electronically to mean that a person with the intent to sign the record uses an electronic sound, symbol, or process attached to or logically associated with the record and executed or adopted by a person. That is the definition we have used in our statutes historically for electronic signatures as we've legalized them for different things. So I kept that consistent. And then for purposes of this, though, we're following I believe it's the NHTSA requirements, for electronic signatures, that the electronic signatures on the supporting documents shall utilize a secure authentication system that identifies the signatory with a degree of certainty equivalent to or greater than level 2, as described in the National Institute of Standard and Technology's June 2017 Digital Identity Guidelines, and then the reference to the special publication. So that's a standard federal guidance. The levels basically, if I remember right, go from level 0 to level 4 or 5. And so this is an intermediate level of security here, but this is what they recommend for these documents. And then supporting documents include bills of sale, title documents, odometer disclosures, and powers of attorney. And then adding in the language here that the insurer shall indemnify and hold harmless the department for any claims arising from the issuance of a certificate of title or some this section. So
Any concerns?
it's
This
pretty,
is really just adding the signature.
it's adding the signature and clarifying what we mean by that. And then the indemnification language at the bottom there is also additional. But it is a salvage title. There is a chance that there could be a claim. This is basically saying if you're going to take title, you're going to hold the department harmless.
Any concerns? That's in.
All right.
Number 9, duplicate titles.
This has not changed from the underlying draft. As I mentioned or explained in the earlier drafts, both this and section 10 provide that if you're obtaining the duplicate title at a DMV location, they can hand it to you at the location while you're there instead of having to mail it to you.
We're okay with that.
So that's going to bring us to section 11. Okay, section 11 is the clarification on the location of title appeals. It doesn't change the underlying law, it just clarifies that we're in the civil division, not the criminal division of the Superior Court in Washington County.
You do everything in Washington County. Can't we move it someplace? I think we're okay with that.
All right. The abandoned motor vehicle certificates of title, this is just a technical renumbering to try to enhance clarity in the section. No changes from the underlying bill.
We're okay with that.
The fees for towing from public property, you went over this with the department a day or two ago.
Yep.
And so this increases the fees to $250 as proposed. And this adds the agency of transportation language. So you'll find that on lines 18 to 21 on page 14. If the agency of transportation has a vehicle towed from a state right of way, the agency of transportation, upon submission of proof acceptable to the commissioner that the agency has paid a towing service for towing the vehicle from the state right of way, the fee shall be paid too.
This is a very confusing sentence.
Yeah,
I think.
I'll rewrite it. I'm looking at it now. And, it seemed great at whatever time it was that I rewrote it, but so
I understand what's happening and I agree with it, but I don't think this is the best way to say it.
right.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was wondering if I was sure.
No, as I would do. Yeah, I was struggling with it as I was reading it, so
I saw you skipping some words to try to make it make sense.
yeah.
I don't,
All right.
I don't understand.
So,
We'll put this on hold.
All right,
Um,
you'll get a better draft next time.
It's the only problem with this section is you, Damien. You don't want everybody else to be.
Yep. Oh, man. Yeah. It's like the demotivator posters. It could be the problem is you.
right.
So, anyway, diesel fuel tax, this is a technical change here, renumbering, to make sure that the subsections and subdivisions line up logically. It doesn't make a substantive change.
We're okay with that.
Purchase and use tax. So this has changed from the underlying bill. There are a couple of changes in here. So as a reminder, the definitions here, we're clarifying the definition of purchase price. This is the same as it was in the underlying bill, clarifying for vehicles purchased outright and leased vehicles. The taxable cost. What's the change here? Oh, this was the technical change the department requested, clarifying for vehicles that don't have a clean trade-in value, that the commissioner can develop a process to determine that value. And this lines up with language we enacted last year. Technical change in subdivision 2 to clarify the National Guard rather than a guard unit. And then adding definitions of month, shipping weight, trailer, and importantly, we've added a definition of trailer coach. So a trailer coach is a trailer that has living quarters in it. So this is your tow behind camper. It can also be a custom trailer that's, hauling you could see them for hauling race equipment around that also have bunk or kitchen quarters for the folks who are traveling to a race, whether it's a bike race or a motocross or motor vehicle. For the tax imposed, going into section 16,
These two fit together.
they fit together, yes. That you'll notice that with that definition of trailer coach, we've lined that up with motorhomes, so it's subject to the full purchase and use tax. But for the definition of trailer, we've lined that up with the capped purchase and use tax. So if you're buying a trailer, whether it's a contractor trailer or just a regular utility trailer or a semi trailer for your business, you're capped at $2,486 in tax. However, if you're buying a custom tow behind trailer coach, at that point, you're subject to the tax up to whatever the full value is. So that's the separation here. And that's really the cleanup that happened.
So we do have, the deputy commissioner and, tax scheduled to speak at 11 on this. I am gonna take, and are you representing the truck and bus?
The Vermont Auto Dealers.
So, state your name.
Matt Coda, Meadow Hill, I'm the Vermont Vehicle Owners Association.
And could you raise your concern?
So appreciate the change that clarified that trailers that are used in hauling operations, moving fuel and logs are exempt, as I understand the rewrite from Jamie.
They're subject to the cap.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
no worries. Yeah, I just want to make sure.
There are a handful of dealers of RVs, Nicholson's on East Montpelier, Pete and South Arlington, that have been charging the max tax on either a fifth wheel or a travel trailer that has living quarters. Those vehicles most of them that are over 28 feet are going to be above 40,000 retail sales, so then would no longer qualify for the max tax with this removal. It's not every travel trailer, but it would certainly affect sales if they're going from $2,485 in the max tax to $100,000 trailer that's about double their tax from those sales. Just making it clear that this will have an impact on certain sellers of travel trailers and the choices we could make whether to buy them here or go elsewhere.
And is it, DMV's, intention to expand the number of trailers that would, be taxed?
So Renee Coder, our director's here, but we're trying to clarify, because trailers, with the exception of semi-trailers due to case law, were never supposed to have the MAC tax. So we're actually now defining it so we can follow established statute. And then we're just trying to mirror what we have for motor coach on the max tax with the travel trailers. So we can have some parity between the two. We're not having one off. Our intention isn't to try to capture anything differently. We're just trying to mirror what we have available on the vehicle side with how we apply it to a trailer. So there's some normalcy or consistency in language.
I'm not sure that if Nicholson's ends up with their tax doubling or, RVs that they're selling up there, that they would consider this, I would think that they would consider an expansion of that. And I'm not sure that we want to do that without a lot of testimony, or at least some testimony. What do you think?
Yeah, I would want to take some more testimony on that, and I'm wondering what Mr. Coda's testimony about where they buy it would be where they registered it, right? Not where they buy it.
If I may, Olivia Nicholson volunteered to come down here today. I told her not to. I said, I think that the chair would provide an opportunity to address this, how you tax it, what vehicles you tax, and how you pay it.
Yeah. But it's where you register, not where you buy it. Like if you went to New Hampshire to try to avoid the tax, you'd still get taxed when you registered it, if you registered it.
That sounds correct.
Right. But still, it'd still be an issue when they go to buy it and they're told tax is $6,000. So there might be more work that needs to be done, because, maybe there's a reason why we don't want the cap. If it's, I think the cap was, I'm not sure why it was set, and if the thinking was that some of these things that are, over $100,000, is that the right cap? That we could have that discussion, but we would need more testimony to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking of, I had a concern over someone who uses similar to a toy hauler, a utility trailer, and I can think of examples of a 40-foot utility trailer that a guy uses for business, but he has a little small living quarters. This would suck that into that category, wouldn't it? If he has a bed.
Yeah, so let me read the definition of trailer coach. But I think it would. And I think that's one of the kind of questions here is, what do you want included in there? And the way trailer coach is defined.
Could this be your onion trailer?
No. Which I don't have anymore. No.
Well, that you used to have?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so a trailer coach is any trailer or semi-trailer designed to be towed behind a motor vehicle and designed, equipped, or used for sleeping, eating, or living quarters. So that can be a kitchen in there. It can be sleeping quarters with no cooking quarters, or it can be some sort of living quarters, although, I'm sure you could imagine something, but yeah, so this could be something that has like a small bed and or cooking apparatus in there.
I'll give you an example of just, somebody who buys and I know people who have this, I'll say a beer truck, a box truck for their concession business. And that all their supplies and stuff, so forth are in the truck, but in the front, a few people have living quarters, so they work all day and they sack out in the front of the truck. Now that would make that would remove a cab that would make that a motor coach at that point. Essentially.
Are we saying trailer coaches are exempt from the cap?
Well, so trailer coach has to be, it has to be something that's trailer, so it's towed, it doesn't have its own
Oh,
power.
okay, so, well, same
But
thing.
then let me just find, motor coaches. Oh, what's the definition here? Give me a second here. So we're looking at motor homes. And that is defined in a separate place. So let me just pull up the right statute and get that for you. But that is, I think, yeah, I'm not sure if that would get caught or not. So,
Well, that's just a concern, but the other concern is a towed behind trailer, same scenario.
yeah,
Used for supplies and stuff, and
yeah.
that's a common occurrence.
So,
So the motorhome is a newer used pleasure car designed to provide temporary living quarters built as an integral part of or permanently attached to a self-propelled motor vehicle chassis or van. Must contain at least 4 of the following facilities: cooking, refrigeration or ice box, self-contained toilet, heating or air conditioning, portable water supply, including a sink and faucet, separate 110 to 125 volt electric power, or an LP gas supply. So it actually doesn't speak to, for example, a truck where you just got bed or a pop-up tent on the back. And I'm not sure it speaks to a box truck, which would be a motor truck, pleasure car that has sleeping facilities in it.
I know I'm gonna make a suggestion.
Okay.
I think the department needs to work with, Matt's organization and, Meckelson's and some of and bring us back something. I think, from what I understand, if we're not changing the rules as they're enforced right now, and we're trying to create clarity, there's some sympathy in here for that. We aren't willing to make an expansion in here without being clear on what we could work. If I'm trying to get this bill out next week, if sometime before Wednesday, you could come back and you could work with Damien and get language that articulates what we're doing now with not any changes to clear up the statute, we're all for that. If not, what I would say is, we do have the T-bills later in the session coming. We could always include something there. But if you guys don't agree by next Wednesday, coming in here, this is out of at least this miscellaneous EMV bill.
Yeah, Chair, we can certainly do that. I think the easiest solution is just take out trailer coach.
You sit down and you work with everybody involved and work with through Damien and get us something that everybody agrees to. And that goes for both 15 and 16.
Okay. Section 17 is this is the penalties for operation of an unregistered snowmobile. And so this raises the penalty from $135 to $450 for a first offense and $500 for a second or subsequent offense within a 3-year period. This was the language requested by VAST that the department put in.
and we took testimony from them, and I haven't had anybody, has anybody contacted either one of you?
No.
And I think we're good to go with that.
Okay. Section 18, I'm going to pass over. So this one, I discovered last night that there's another complication with the federal regulations. So I'm going to work with DMV's counsel. I did find a similar provision in New York State that I think we can use as a basis to move forward and try to get as close to as possible to what the DMV is asking for and stay within the federal requirements. So I'll work with them to refine that language. I apologize for not discovering that issue earlier.
So can you, explain what the federal, and the problems here?
Sure. So the problems with this language is so what we're trying to do, as I understand it, is DMV is looking to allow for a waiver of the CDL requirements when you're operating a heavy vehicle for the state, a commercial motor vehicle, during a weather emergency. The language in here incorrectly references 49 CFR Part 390. That should actually say Part 390.5T for the definitions. That was a typo. That applies to operators of motor carriers, which are commercial businesses, not the state. Part 383 applies to the state. Specifically, Part 383 D2 provides an exemption that potentially can be read this broadly to include things besides fire trucks, police, and emergency medical during an emergency. And that's what New York has tied theirs to. And they've worded their language broadly to encompass other state response vehicles being exempt from the CDL requirements during emergencies under that provision. So what I would propose and what I'll work on with their counsel to ensure that it works for them as well is to draft language in here that provides that the operation is expressly permitted pursuant to the terms of the governor's declaration, and it's consistent with the requirements of 49 CFR section 383.3 D2, which is the exemption for state emergency response, state, and it could be local as well.
Okay.
But that what I discovered last night was that there's a separate section of Part 390 that expressly says the exemptions in this don't apply to state employees. You have to go elsewhere for that. So we were incorrectly referencing that, and I apologize.
So there's an issue of type of vehicle, and then there's an issue of state employees versus non-state.
Right, and in Part 383.3, they provide specific exemptions from the requirements for a commercial driver's license. That's where you find the exemption that we've talked about in here for a farm vehicle within 150 miles of the farm. It's where you find the exemption for fire trucks, for National Guard. So for example, if you're in the National Guard, you don't need a CDL to drive a large military truck. And there's also a broader emergency exemption. So the fire truck exemption can be broadened at the state's discretion. And based on the way New York has adopted theirs, I think that can be used as a model for us to adopt one that can be read broadly. And then by cross-referencing the federal regulation, if DMV or Agency of Transportation gets guidance from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration that what they're proposing is beyond what the federal regulations allow, they can simply trim down to what the federal regulations allow. But if what they're proposing is permissible, then they're good to go, and this will give them the full breadth of what the federal law permits.
We'll put this on hold and if you could earlier in the week.
I will send proposed language this afternoon if I can, and hopefully we'll have something by next week. I think I have a good sense of where it's at, and then we can set up a time to meet, and I'll make myself available to work through it with them. And again, I apologize for discovering it so late. Was frustrating to me.
Yeah. Well, that.
To find it at a time when I didn't
Just
expect
trying
anyone
to
would be
get,
able to.
what I am gonna ask after this is, we did have the tracking document. So if we get a tracking document, color coded and say this is closed and here's what's open. So, members of the committee that are not here, can bring that up. We're looking now at 19. And is this the same? No, this is,
19 is different. That's the fee, and that is unchanged from the underlying bill. I'm not aware of any issues with the federal law
okay,
on this one, and it's really a question of whether you've heard any objections.
heaven. This draft includes, can you, this issue was raised by someone in 20, by the, department.
Hold on a second. Just finishing up.
No,
Yes, the motorboat validation stickers. This is new language that was proposed to bring us into compliance with federal requirements for the validation stickers. So basically, if a state issues registration validation stickers, they have to be within 6 inches of the registration number.
Yep.
On the boat. And so this language, which you find on page 20, starting on 25 and going on to page 26, provides that it's 6 inches in front on the port side and 6 inches behind on the starboard side of the motorboat. And the other changes in here are simply just renumbering and replacing gendered references with references to the title of the individual.
do you have the email, Megan, from this?
Mandy Worcester, that one.
Yeah,
No,
I assume
that was always sent
you,
to Senator White.
It was sent to Senator White. Senator White forwarded it to me. I can pull the email up if you'd like. Okay.
if Mandy could take 5 minutes and just repeat this to us, then we're on the record having listened to somebody about this.
but you made the change that Mandy suggested.
Yeah, so it was exactly. So the request came in. Add the language validation stickers must be placed within 6 inches preceding the registration number on the port side and within 6 inches following on the starboard side.
Can we,
Um,
so can we get Mandy in here as soon as you get a
Yeah.
block of time and give her 10 minutes? This doesn't seem like, but I'd rather just be on the record that we.
Yeah. And so she's from Department of Public Safety.
What section is it?
20.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever seen a boat that doesn't have the VT within 6 inches.
I don't think this is any problem, but I would rather we get somebody on
Yeah.
record.
And so the other thing to just note with this section is below that new language, I've made a number of minor technical changes. I'm happy to take those out if it's too much text and it's drawing away from the subject, but I thought while I was in there, I'd make them.
You get rid of the, by and put or in.
Yeah, I can't stand that language. It's
Yeah.
sort of pathological at this point.
Dealers, place of business, is that? Or is that?
Yeah, so, I've broken things out into subdivisions, to try to break out the ideas because it was one very long paragraph. The person engaged in the business of selling or exchanging as defined in subdivision 4.8, it is actually, the definition is dealer. And that was just parroting what the definition said. So dealer in motorboats, works better there. And then changing his or her for dealer in multiple places,
So-
and correcting a cross reference.
Just send Mandy his new language. And if she says yes, we're done.
Yeah. Uh,
And I don't think she needs more than 5 minutes.
yeah. So section 21 is the personal flotation device language that Senator White proposed.
Yep.
I have not made updates to it based on yesterday's testimony because I wasn't clear on where the committee wants to go based on the testimony from the Vermont Traditions Coalition.
I don't, we haven't had any discussion, so I don't think we are.
Yeah.
Let me ask. And I want to hold any decision on this till Senator White is here. But let me ask, the two of you, is there any sympathy for what was raised as issues by, the sportsman's groups yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, I did it. You could see that there's instances you're in 2 feet of water and you're bow fishing or otherwise, so I mean, you might be technically underway, but you're not really underway with that. And so if there was a way to word it, I don't know how easy that would be to do.
What do you think, Damien?
You know, if hunting or, hunting or bow fishing.
Yeah, I think, certainly you could say something like, the provisions of this subdivision shall not apply to an individual that's actively engaged in, hunting, is, located in a, or bow fishing or something like that, we could say. I think,
I think. What do you think?
I'd like to hear how you would do it, but I'm sympathetic to the, like Andy said,
I'm would say I'm particularly sympathetic as long as it's shallow water.
how you define that is the
well,
question. Probably.
it's also a question of how you enforce it. So, it's,
We could.
I mean, you could say, yeah, and fewer than, you could set a limit for, water with a depth of less than or not more than blank feet, and actively engaged in hunting or bow fishing.
We're just,
Like feet, so maybe we're talking bow hunting.
Yeah, the question that is being discussed is whether there's interest in creating an exception for folks who are hunting or bow fishing in shallow water, as opposed to folks who are out in, water above a certain depth where you couldn't, for example, stand up in the water. That, so.
You can still drown in a foot of water though. But I would be supportive of that, for sure.
that's kind of where we were.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess it sounds to me like hunting and bow fishing are, or, in fishing with the use of a bow, or do you just want fishing or hunting in fewer than X feet of water?
Yeah, I would assume you could wear a vest if you're just casting. And you're not gonna be in shallow water, I mean, maybe that gets into the beach or something.
I'd let somebody else struggle with it more, but I have sympathy if you're, I particularly had duck hunters come that are sitting in a stand, it's all covered up, and they're in less than a couple feet of water.
Mhm.
And that I have sympathy for. I lose sympathy if you're out in deep water and you're moving. So I don't know why don't you take a stab at some language and we'll entertain it and talk about it, but
If the concept gets in the bill, I'm just happy. I'll say that if there's an amendment to it, I think this is,
yeah, I don't think anybody is. I will say outside of the committee, the people I heard from were people in duck blinds in a flat bottom boat that are in basically 6 inches of water.
no, I get it.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of how shallow? 3 feet? Okay, great.
Okay,
I wanna,
good.
Yeah.
right, I don't wanna be the
2.5.
person making a policy choice on what's permissible here,
But we
so.
could, if we see the language, we can have folks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
And we're up to mini trucks, and we're gonna have a document here, printed up. I asked for color coded, and what's closed and what's not, and then you can look through, and if you have any questions about that, we can go back and,
And you're on section 11.
no,
we're up to section 22.
Oh my gosh, way to go.
Yeah, we're flying. So the mini trucks, there's really 2 parts to this. And so I think it's worth considering section 22 and 23 separately. Section 22 is the definition. It creates a definition of mini truck, which are commonly known as K trucks. And it includes them within the definition of pleasure car, and farm truck. With that being done, you would now have them subject to the registration, or clearly included in the registration for pleasure cars and farm trucks there, depending on how you're registering it. Section 23 gets into the uses of mini trucks and limits them to highways with a speed limit below of 55 miles an hour and below, and prohibits municipalities and the traffic committee from adopting rules or ordinance that would prohibit them on their use on those highways. So that's really kind of a separate issue. The one other thing I would flag is that, so there are K trucks and there are other K vehicles. You are specifically limiting this to the mini trucks here. If you wanted to expand it to things like the little mini buses or the other smaller vehicles, all of which have to meet this 25 years of age for federal importation requirements, then you would want to take out the language on line 7 and 8 that says that is designed, used, or maintained primarily for transportation of property and so then it would just be a motor vehicle that has 4 wheels, an engine displacement of 660 cc or less, and an overall length, height, and width, because that meets all the requirements for a K truck, and would fit within that, or a K vehicle, excuse me. And so these are all within that broad category of K vehicles or Keiji dosha in Japan, which are light vehicles under their law.
Yeah, I don't know why we would limit it just to trucks. Because we see means and motor vehicles, so it doesn't have to be a truck, it just has to be transportation of property. So somebody could use, I passed in one of the minivans today on Route 2. So you could use a minivan for transportation of property, so I think that would still meet this definition, but I don't see why we would limit it to somebody that's using a minivan for transportation of people. At least that's my view.
Yes.
Like, I would like, if we're gonna do this, why wouldn't we open it up to all the K cars and not just the trucks that are used for transportation of property?
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would agree as well. If I had my druthers, I would strike out the primarily for transportation of property piece. But I do have a question because I thought the issue, I similarly to Senator Perch, like I thought the issue with this definition for the K vans wasn't that section, but it was the sizing of everything. So they are within the same size
I
range?
believe that they are.
Oh, okay, well, then, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that all of these vehicles here, there are very specific size requirements under the regulations in Japan for these vehicles. So you can't have an engine displacement above 660 cc, so that limits speed. And you can't have a size above certain amounts. And the reason they did it that way is that they wanted to create small, affordable vehicles in the post-war Japan, and then it went from there and has become kind of a staple in Japan and other countries where you have different sized streets and cities and so forth, and these fit well with that sort of street architecture and so forth.
Okay,
Done a little history reading
this is very,
to learn about
Yeah.
this for purposes of this bill. But so there is a variety of these. Some states have gone to K vehicle, or another term that defining it as all the vehicles. Some just limit it to the mini trucks. And I think a lot of the states that have limited it to mini trucks, their focus started with agricultural vehicles, where farms were using these as utility vehicles.
Have you been able to run this by anybody at the
I don't know DMV's position on this. I'd leave it to them to speak to it.
they have seen the
and-
same, they have seen, I sent them the language like a week ago, so they should.
We're happy with that change in the section 22. So we make sure we encompass all vehicles. Our only question was the 55 mile per hour one, if we want to throttle that or not, if we should have a speed limit in there. I think I'm just thinking of the end user of this or law enforcement. How are you really enforcing
why don't I
that
just
definition?
say, why don't you take it back, review it? If you can live with this the way Damien's got it, or if 55 is an issue, I have no opinion on that. Do you?
Yeah, the reason, so I drafted this with Damien, looking at what other states have done. So I think our policy right now as a DMV, it does not have any limitations on speed. So this would be a restriction that we don't currently have, but I wanted to include it in case there was trepidation about generally kind of including mini trucks. So this was more, I would say I wanted to see this language in part because I thought it would ease folks who might have uncomfortability with
Do,
them. But if people don't have any discomfort, then I'm happy
do
to
we
see
have
it.
any opinion?
Well, I mean, I read that and I said, yeah, because they're not allowed on the interstate. Is that correct?
They,
They are.
They are.
They are.
Okay.
It's- Yeah,
And if they are, then I don't care about speed. It's
I mean, the biggest thing on the interstate is if you have a vehicle, so say you have an older K truck that cannot do 65, you could get pulled over for potentially
So-
traveling too
So
slowly.
the only
Yeah.
open issue on this,
But-
seems to be 55. Why don't you, take a look at this draft? If it comes back to us after you have dealt with DMV and 55 is will be in or out, and they call it, and you bring us a clean draft on Tuesday, and if we don't hear anything more than that, it's in.
Can we take out the Ford transportation property piece? Is that?
I've that marked to be deleted.
I mean, so minimum, speed on the interstate 45 anyway, isn't it?
Right,
So.
bring us a clean copy and run it by them.
Yeah, but it would be like any other motor vehicle. If you have a motor vehicle that can't handle the interstate, that becomes kind of a responsibility issue there, and you know, or if you overload your motor vehicle.
You get money enough to it.
One of those.
Yeah,
Good for it, that's cute.
Is there a price tag on that?
Well, if we do pass the
What's the
speed
price?
legislation, we need a little display day. Just if you write in,
I'll be coming to work in a mini dump truck.
30.
good guess,
That's not bad.
That's cheap.
that's why people are buying them.
you can. Yeah. Anyway, I can't go into personal comment.
Bring us back a clean, thing of this and run it by DMV and.
Yeah, so the next section is rulemaking for the inspection manual. The DMV has been sent this language, but I have not had a chance to discuss with them this language and how it works for them, apart from discussing the broad parameters in advance of drafting it, but they haven't had a chance to comment on the draft.
Yep.
So this requires DMV to amend the inspection manual to increase its focus on vehicle conditions that constitute genuine safety issues, eliminate outdated procedures, and provide clear, consistent guidance for both inspection mechanics and members of the public. I essentially took that from their handout. And then the amendments to the inspection manual shall specifically address conditions of the following vehicle components and systems that would warrant failure of an inspection and that a vehicle owner should be advised of. And the commissioner did highlight for me in an email exchange yesterday that there is some concern with DMV that if they get down the road and on hearing feedback or public comment, they realize that one of these changes that they've proposed is not advisable. They'd like more flexibility. So I'm going to try to think about ways to build in some flexibility to incorporate public feedback, or not. But that was something that was raised, and I'll let the commissioner speak to that more. But this would, I pulled out the different components that they identified. Tires. So this is clarifying whether it should warrant failure or that a vehicle owner should be advised of. Tires, power steering, suspension, brake rotors, lighting, electrical systems and components, windshield, windows, windshield wipers, vehicle body, and in the discretion of the commissioner, any other vehicle systems or components. And then also include the elimination of the on-highway road test for brakes and the headlamp aiming test, and provide additional visual guidance regarding when certain conditions warrant failure of an inspection. And it occurs to me here that you may also want another line saying in the discretion of the commissioner, eliminate any other procedures or provide any additional guidance that the commissioner determines would be consistent with this section. And the other piece here is this requires rulemaking to commence on or before August 1, 2026. That is a placeholder date that I just came up with. It's a month after the expected effective date of this, so that may be too soon. And so I would just say that what this requires is that whatever date you choose to substitute for August 1, 2026, if you don't keep that date, they would file simultaneously permanent rules and emergency rules. And what that does, the emergency rules take effect on that date. And they should encompass everything that's proposed in the permanent rules. And then that gives them 180 days to adopt the permanent rules, get through the rulemaking process. rulemaking usually takes from 4 to 8 months. They can extend the emergency rules if they don't make it at 6 months. The and then the only other thing that we do here that's worth noting is we waive the emergency rulemaking standards because that requires an imminent peril to health, safety, and welfare, which it's hard to say that this would mean. We do this regularly when we require interim emergency rules, just to get around that, because otherwise LCAR has to reject the rules because they don't meet emergency rulemaking standards, even if they're consistent with legislative intent. The only other piece that I would highlight here that has come up in the past is the way I've drafted this is you shall file these rules and adopt the emergency rules. It doesn't actually require the adoption of the permanent rules. So you may want to tweak the language to set a date by which permanent rules would have to be adopted. Because we have seen in at least 2 instances that I can think of, where an agency has filed everything on time, but because of the way the rulemaking process has gone, has declined to adopt a permanent rule ultimately. So the rules just reverted and we were back dealing with it in a coming session. But that would be more complicated language. I went with simple to start. So I would encourage getting feedback from the department on how this looks to them, and also deciding if
You sent the language to them. We haven't heard back from them.
Yeah.
But just as my hope is that we can have this bill all put together by next Friday, except for this section. We've got the hearing on the 24th. The hearing will happen from 5 to 7 on the 24th. And the 25th, I'm hoping that what we can do is just drop the language that both the department and us have agreed to, depending on what we hear in that hearing. And this will be the only thing that we will be waiting on until after we hear from the hearing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, I really appreciate that comment. I think it would be hard for me to be supportive of changes to the rulemaking process around inspections without other language being present in here. I think that would be kind of what would make my decision. I'm supportive of this language. And I guess I'm a little confused about the very start of what you were describing, Damian, which is you had said that the DMV had potentially asked for a way to get more public comment, even in this style of kind of shortening the process.
Well, so
Yeah,
you're under
it's like,
the way the rulemaking process works. So with emergency rules, agency has discretion as to whether it takes any public comment at all before it adopts them. And they take effect on the day they're filed, unless the agency specifies a different date. LCAR can still object to them, but it doesn't actually prevent them from taking effect or undo the emergency rule. It just shifts the burden of proof if someone decides to challenge the validity of the rule. With permanent rules, the rulemaking procedure requires that there be a period where public comment can be submitted. It also typically requires a public hearing to allow for folks who don't want to submit written comments to come in and weigh in. And that's usually a hybrid hearing where they're present in person somewhere and people can also come in by Teams or phone. Typically it's one hearing. Often they're sparsely attended. Occasionally they're not. And more often than not, much of the substantive comment is submitted in writing by, industry groups or particularly involved advocates. Some areas have practitioners who get very involved. You do with issues though that tend to touch a lot of people, often public hearings will be more heavily attended. So an inspection is likely to be something that could have public comment. Oftentimes, a lot of the public comment is things that they don't have discretion to address in the rule because it's required by statute. So people will say, get rid of inspections. And they'll say, we got, 50 comments saying get rid of inspections. We can't do that. So we're declining to make a change.
Okay.
But there is a requirement that they sort of acknowledge that they received public comment and so forth. And that's for the permanent rules. And that's part of the statutory procedure we've set up. And this is their request to go outside of the
Yes.
APA would have taken them out of the requirement for that
And
that
that's what we're doing
procedure.
here.
We are keeping them in the APA
Oh,
here, so in the Administrative Procedure Act, but allowing for these rules to take effect more quickly with the emergency rulemaking process. And then to what the permanent rules allow is basically for a more formal, lengthy process where those emergency rules can be tweaked. So if they roll them out and inspection mechanics were to say, everything except for this change here is working, this change we can't implement, they can make that change. It is a lot of administrative work, rulemaking.
yeah.
So.
Okay.
I would encourage people, if you haven't seen it, there's a memo from the commissioner about these changes that is posted to our website in relationship to our hearing.
Great.
So if you haven't seen that, it kind of from a high level says, here's what we're looking at. And then, but I don't want to finish any work on any of this until after we have a hearing.
And that's fine, I agree with that. And I bring this up a little tentatively because it's going to be an interesting discussion. This is the tinted windows language that 2 years ago we passed legislation talking about tinted windows and inspections, changed the language, passed an Act 165 or something. It was a miscellaneous DMV bill 2024. And it required DMV to do some things that I think weren't done. I would like to readdress those issues. I mean, it's in the legislation that says it will be done, but there was a reason why they didn't do it. I think we should address that.
Does the senator from Washington have some language that he wants to bring it for the committee?
I can work on that.
If the senator had some language, it was something that we could entertain putting someone on the schedule next week. I would like to that's somewhat related to inspections, but not totally related. It is kind of a standalone issue.
It is an inspection issue,
but it is a standalone issue.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Say put it in again. We just do what we did last time, just put it back in.
Bring
It's
it.
existing law, so we don't really need to put back into there.
Oh,
Well, that brings up the broader question. And I don't know where we are with that, but
Yeah, so I could talk to
I
talk to Damien.
this is another, I made a request to get DMV, and the judiciary, the, public safety. And I personally have a conversation with them about what we've seen about the lack of enforcement across the board. There is, the drop off in enforcement I think we've seen is quite striking. I'm at a little bit of a loss on where to go with all of that.
Yeah.
And so I thought I would start as chair of the committee, a conversation with them and bring back what I hear from them.
Let me just read you a part of that.
Yeah.
The DMV bill from 2 years ago. The Department of Motor Vehicles shall, unless extended by the LCAR, adopt amendments to the inspection of motor vehicles consistent with the legislative intent of section 15, which was about if you're not meeting the federal regulations, you don't pass inspection. No later effective, a day no later than the effective date of this act. So that's pretty clear. But they had a reason that for not being able to do it, but I thought we should clarify, are they still supposed to be doing it or are they not supposed to be doing it? But I'll work on it. I just had
Well,
remembered.
if you could come
Yeah.
up with some language that, but I didn't bring up all of the other things that we it would appear that we're handing out less tickets for and
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah,
Yes. Happy to,
yeah.
you know.
I hate the whole year to go by without talking about interventions.
We were pretty close.
I know. I can't believe I didn't think about it.
We were pretty damn close.
You almost stuck it by.
Well, I would just say I'm very supportive of us continuing the conversation around tinted windows. So whatever we have to do there, I'm very supportive of.
Yeah.
There were two other kind of hanging pieces that we have talked about, but I just wanted to get a sense of where we're at. We've talked about the super speeders bill that Senator Chittenden has been introducing, and my understanding is it's going in a conversation about the T bill and not the DMV miscellaneous bill. Is my
Well,
understanding. So I just want to understand if I'm losing my shot at that bill now, and I think the answer to that is no.
no,
But I
it's-
just wanted
it's a no. I thought in conjunction with trying to have a conversation with the state police with of the enforcement levels and getting it, maybe I could get a clearer answer from them about why all of this enforcement is down.
Yes, his bill in particular creates a new way of enforcing like repetitive speeders where they have a device inside their vehicle that doesn't allow them to go over a certain mileage. Miles per hour, I mean. So I just want to confirm that that's more relevant to the T bill, I assume.
It could go in either place. The drunk, so it's similar to an ignition interlock device. If the laws against speeding and the governance over DUI and ignition interlock is all in Title 23, so it could be a miscellaneous motor vehicle. But the T bill is, the bigger umbrella that can include Title 23, Title 19, Title 5. So you could theoretically put it in either bill. It really becomes just a decision. If it gets added in the House, it's germane.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about germaneness. Because whatever comes over from them,
Yep.
is going to fall under
Well,
the germane
And
sort of
our
umbrella.
deadline is not till the 13th. One of the reasons I want to get this out of the way
Yeah.
is it gives us the last week of the month and it gives us the week we come back from town meeting break. We've got 2 weeks to be able to, and I did say earlier in the day, if anyone had any bills on the wall that they felt we should have people in on.
Yeah, that's.
The sponsors on particularly, I've had a request from Senator Gulick.
Yes.
So I think we'll probably pull some people in on it, but I'd like to get this miscellaneous bill
Okay.
done except for that here.
Yeah, that's.
And then we
Okay.
can look at, and it gives us a couple of weeks to do that.
And it was also helpful to hear that if it doesn't end up in our version of the DMV bill, but the House does it, then it's still considered,
Yep.
yeah. And then my last, the last hanging
But
thing.
I will tell you, for me, if we're seeing people stopped for violations that have dramatically dropped, that in itself is concerning to me.
Yes, yeah, and my hope would be if anything, Chittenden's bill could actually help us with that. So that would be the cool part. But, and then the last thing is, and I sent it to the DMV commissioner, I've sent it to Michelle Boomhauer, and maybe I'm missing it in my email, but I've asked a few times about the use of Homeland Security and ICE's way of using license plates, including in Vermont, where they're not labeled federal vehicles. They're not like federal license plates. They're just regular license plates. And then them swapping license plates. And in Maine, they've actually, their DMV commissioner unilaterally chose to end that practice. So if you're someone who is getting a license plate and you are a federal agency, you have to have the properly, it has to be marked in the correct way. It can't be like a regular license plate. So I had asked to get comment on that, and if not, concluding language to move forward with that same policy here. But I don't know, I haven't heard back yet. So that's my last piece, because I think it causes a lot of anxiety and fear when folks see vehicles that aren't labeled as federal enforcement vehicles, but then they turn out to be through the actions of the people in the vehicle. Just like if, any unmarked police car, unless in a very certain situation, that's why we have labeled sheriffs and police officers and DMV enforcement. It's very important. So I don't know if we want to ask the DMV commissioner about that, or if they have a comment on it, but
I think, well, you can comment on it if you choose to. If you, we don't have language at this point, so.
Correct. No, I was just gonna comment, Senator. The other day when you sent the email, had a quick glance at Maine. We haven't really had a chance to dig into it. Maine paused it and they just created a form, so they're getting ready to reissue again.
yes.
So, and it was from the Secretary of State, not their.
Oh, Secretary of State, they're DMV, yeah.
So they didn't ban them, they just paused it, and it sounds like they're getting ready to reissue again.
Yeah,
and
reissue
it's-
federal license plates.
No, reissue, so it's a program, it's what the term of the license now, Undercover, thank you.
Yeah.
Undercover license plates. They're not reissuing as federal. They're still gonna keep the program going. They just created a form now. And it sounds like they're getting ready to reissue again. So it's just a pause. They didn't cancel the program. And that was just, and the other day I just started looking at it, and just anecdotally, just in Vermont, we haven't seen any increase. The person that handles these, it's per our MRUs with all departments. We have to keep them under lock and key. So that one person has been out, but anecdotally, I think we've had 3 in the last 3 or 4 months, and they weren't federal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, when they took my friend Mosen, they had 7 vehicles and they were all not properly labeled. So I don't know how they got, and they were all Vermont license plates. So I
And
don't
so
know, I know you're saying there's only 3 in the last few months. Maybe you saw 7 back in 2025. I would love to see numbers on that and get maybe a statement,
And
because it is important to my voters.
Correct. I will just say, if an agency or federal agency swaps their license plates, I don't really, I can't control that with enforcement, so I'll just say that, so.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me have that back.
No problem. We have a placeholder here. And I know you have some interest in that card,
Stingray.
in Milton. And I think you're working on some language for that, so
Yeah.
that will come up.
I have, I have some, bullet points, from the advocates on that, and some working language from other states, and I'm gonna try to put something together for the next draft that can be reviewed by the advocates and DMV, and, yeah, hopefully, we'll be able to figure that out next week, but I just didn't have time this week to put together the new language and get a draft for today, so.
And then, the whole issue of license plates. I'm thinking that this is probably not the vehicle for any of that.
No pun.
And you mean also, you mean the V green there?
I mean,
That's
front
all.
plate,
You mean that?
yeah,
Okay.
you know. I personally am uncomfortable moving ahead with front plates without law enforcement, and
Yeah.
the leading agency in the state is state police. They were invited, they asked to be uninvited. And so
I don't know.
I'm not sure that we have agreement across the board in any respect.
You can get
for
my
any-
local law enforcement to come and testify if you need somebody.
Well, yes. But, you know, if some of the players work out their issues and came back with us with a proposal, we always said, the T-bill, that we could do something. How do you,
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think it's a lot bigger issue than it started out to be.
can you, Andy?
Yeah, I agree with you.
And
You know what? I think this is a very good compromise in a way where both of the sides of the topic are not having a decision in this bill. And I hope that the House really digs into it.
I hope so too. I'm all for it. You can send us over something.
Exactly.
I
time.
think it's fair to say we've tried.
I think that
And, with that, we did have scheduled for section, 15 and 16 and 11, but I think, we're looking for language to come back next week.
Yes, it sounds like we're gonna make some revisions.
Yep. And, I'm hoping that, the players involved can meet outside of the room and bring us back something.
I think I'm available to talk right now. So,
So I think at this point, I'm going to break the committee. And I hope everybody has a great weekend.
can be done.